Welcome to Women Are Rising with your host, Katie Kozlowski. This is the podcast where we come together and we bust the myths. We turn things upside down and we get to the heart of the matter. Women Are Rising is dedicated to bringing truths to the forefront and liberating souls from the inside out. Without further ado, here's Katie K and Women Are Rising. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Women Are Rising. I'm here with Nina Dafe, Dafe, I just and we are going to just dive in. I'm so excited to talk to you about a whole bunch of things because I think that we're going to be able to sort of hit on a lot of those kind of like what I like to call like the funny bones of, spirituality and women and all these things. So every conversation we have is different, obviously, with this podcast and with this series. And I just kind of want to sometimes we start on the outside and I want to go straight to the sort of heart of what you do because I know that you address a lot of things that are sort of those taboo words that we don't talk about. Mm-hmm. I know you have at least a background, and you can explain this further, but Christianity.
Yeah.
And women. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like those two in itself is just a great way to start because seriously, because what is the role of women in Christianity? Mm-hmm. And how did you what is your approach? What is your story? Just start there, just share a little bit and then we'll just see what happens.
Perfect. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me and having this conversation. Really excited for it. But for me, my background, I've always kind of been, raised as a Christian, started off sort of Catholic and then more evangelical, I guess, as I went into secondary school, what you guys would call high school. And unfortunately, a lot of what I saw with women's roles amongst my family, amongst my friends, the older kind of generation around my parents' age, was that women were kind of very much expected to be quite subservient. They were very much expected to just kind of toe the line and, do what it was around the family and around their husbands, almost sometimes to the detriment of themselves. So they, I saw quite a few of my older female relatives in abusive situations, for example, right. Whether that was kind of physically, mentally, emotionally, women who didn't really feel like they could actually have their say and express their true selves because of the religion around how a woman is supposed to present and the way that she's supposed to be. My background is also Nigerian. So, I was born and raised in London, but I'm kind of first generation.
Right.
So my dad was very much, this is the UK, but in our house, this is Nigeria,
Right. Yeah.
So, even I had the Christian background, but then even though I was raised here, almost quite a traditional Nigerian background too. And the two tend to tie very much together. If you know anything about Nigerian culture, especially with Christianity, it's very much on the rise there. We are full of churches and all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of the times, the stuff that women go through and kind of the sexism and all of that kind of stuff is not only backed up by religion and Christianity, but it's actually also backed up by the culture. So there's almost sometimes this double shackle that I feel that women feel. So they could be unhappy, for example, in a relationship or a marriage, for example, but feel that they have to stay because of traditional duty.
Right.
But there again, also feel that they have to stay because, oh my gosh, the stigmas around separation and divorce within the church and, all of that sort of stuff. So for me, I've always been someone who's questioned. I have always been very observant, and I've always been someone who questions and will ask, well, why this and why that? Like if you speak to my mum, she when she refers back to me when I was younger, she's like, you're forever asking why or why not.
That sounds like me. I was the one that I would be like, how far do I have to bend this pencil?
Absolutely.
I've gone blind because
but now I know the answer, right?
You want to know, though. You want to, yeah. And I love that because it's like that kind of like ever constantly turning it over and then turning it over again. And introspection and I get that.
So I think for me, just watching all of that and observing all of that, I knew that wasn't necessarily the way that I wanted to go. And I think I did a lot of, maybe didn't realize it at the time, but fighting against kind of the traditions and the roles. So, for example, I saw quite a few of my older female relatives. Part of the reason why they were stuck in, their marriages, for example, is, due to finances. They'd been dependent on their husbands, and so they couldn't leave. So my thing was, fine, I'm going to go up and I'm going to be strong and independent. I'm going to go to university, make sure I've got my own money, so if I do get married, or just in case, I can, run if I need to. Or, these are the sort of thoughts that I had in my mind. So kind of fast forwarding, going, finished uni now and all of that sort of stuff, got to kind of 25 and a lot of my friends and, people around me were starting to get married. And of course, then my uncles, aunties, parents start looking at me. When are we going to drink wine at your wedding? What's going on? Yep. All of those.
I know that one.
Yeah, it's starting to happen. And I think, like I said, because I'm the sort of person that's always asking why or why not, I was very much, funnily enough, as much as I, might paint myself as a rebel, I actually did kind of toe the line. I did go to school. I didn't really, get into trouble. They told me, you go to school, you get a house, you get a job, and then this is what you do.
Right.
So I'd done all of that really and truly in terms of path. The next step was supposed to be marriage. And I just remember kind of going, okay, this is what I'm being told, but is that actually what I want for myself? Is this where I see myself right now?
Right.
And in all honesty, at that point in time, and actually probably still now, it's not. I still, you mentioned the fact that I've got, the projects that I do. I still want to travel. There's just still so much that I want to kind of get done. And I feel in terms of purpose before and if ever I do kind of settle down. But what I saw with a lot of my peers was that they all did just follow this path.
Right.
And
yeah. Like the salmon. I remember someone was doing something and I saw something like that. And it was like, it was a spiritual test, or it was like some kind of like psychological test.
Yeah.
And it had to do with salmon and like
the current. Yeah.
And going with the flow. And I appreciate so much of what you're saying because I'm 37 and I'm not married.
There we go.
And a lot of times people are like,
doesn't that bother you?
I think that
blah,
too.
Blah, blah. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what am I doing? Is this, is there something wrong with this?
Yeah.
Like, is there something wrong with this?
I have had that conversation with myself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And people say that, oh, there must be something wrong with you. Why are you not married? Or they'll go,
exactly.
I get it. You're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Right?
You make a great mom. You know, all of that stuff.
And then I go, maybe I'm nuts. Like maybe I'm actually not, maybe I am like wrong. So yes. I appreciate everything you're saying about this. And that's one of the reasons why I love, like I said, we have all kinds of different experiences and angles of the journey. Yeah, totally. And I think it's really cool to be speaking with someone who's sort of gone through that stage of not getting married.
Yeah.
And totally. That not being like a bad
issue
thing, not
or
being
a bad
like crazy
thing. Yeah.
Why aren't you married? What's wrong with you?
But I think it took me a while to get here. And I think especially once again from the kind of religious Christian point of view, I've been someone who's, a serious Christian since I was like 11, going to church of my own free will, you know, all of that sort of stuff, because I wanted to.
Right.
And I think because a lot of the time, once again, these things are backed up. People will use scripture, people will use the Bible to argue their points. So when I was kind of saying, well, I don't know if I want to get married or this, that, and the other, you know, the first thing that they would go to was, you know, Eve. But God said, it's not good that man should be alone. And
is like, I'm like, Eve, yes.
Yeah.
Because I totally, like, you know, I totally go there too sometimes. And I think about that and I'm like, well, how did she feel? Like, what about her feelings? Like, why don't we ever talk about how he felt?
Sure.
Why don't we ever, like, think about how Mary felt? Like,
exactly.
Liked those labels? Were they like, yeah, I'm cool with being labeled a slut. Like, don't worry, I'm the prostitute. I'm like, I'm not cool with that.
No, it's true. And that, I think, was what really started my project with the whole Far Above Ruby's collection and stuff. Yeah. Because I think because I was, you know, having the Bible and scripture and verses hurled at me, my thing was, well, to be honest, this is what I've seen and heard my whole life. Hence the reason why I saw what I saw growing up with my female relatives and stuff like that. Now, I know I don't want that. And this is what is being justified for it. So what I need to do for myself is kind of go and study and see just whether or not this is true, you know, whether or not it really does say that. And I think also the other side of it as well was how women tend to be spoken about. So, you know, a Christian woman or a godly woman is supposed to be nice and quiet and demure and carry herself a certain way. Yeah, and I don't. I'm really outspoken.
I'm, you know, that like, oopsies, did I do that? Like,
you know,
pushing the envelope, you know, like just like just push.
Absolutely.
I totally get it because I'm like, I'm always kind of nudging and very frightenedly nudging.
Yeah.
Don't want to get yelled at.
Yes.
But I also am like, but something's not right here. And I'm like, I just like, you know, it's like you're like making the recipe. It's like, sometimes I get these ideas of like, wait, explain it. And I'm like, it's like you have grandma's recipe and it's like, you do not mess with grandma's recipe. Right. Yeah. And then you're like, but like something's missing. Like, I just want to put like one ingredient there. Don't mess with grandma's recipe.
Absolutely. And
I'm like,
do you know what?
Recipe.
Yeah, and I think that is actually how I was feeling. I was very much like, so you're telling me if I'm not quiet, if I'm not demure, if I'm not this wallflower who's not full of opinions, you know, if I don't get married, that all of a sudden I'm not a godly woman and God is going to be angry at me? Like, really? And are there really no examples of women in the Bible who were like me and you know, maybe did something outside of the box? So that is, like I said, it was in that space where I started doing all of my digging and my investigations. And what I really found was, okay, yeah, marriage and all of that sort of stuff is great. And, you know, is there for the taking if that's where you're led and if that's what you want. But there's also no sin in going the other way if that's how God has made you as a woman. But there are so many women I speak to within my community who feel the same way as me or you. And so many of them are like, you know, thank you for talking about this or writing about this, because I have felt this way, but very quietly. Or, you know, I've not had anyone else who I could talk to about this because of exactly what you said, where, oh, but you know, it's going to be a phase. You're going to make such a great mom or wife. And, you know,
like, what's wrong with you? I mean, like, that's the biggest thing is like, well, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything wrong with me? Like,
honestly,
I thought I was actually pretty cool. Like, I thought, and it comes down to too, and I want to ask you, like, what did you find? Like, what did you discover? Because what I found was like, because I started doing this too, and I started like, I want to understand, like, where did this come from? And then I started looking at the stories, and like all of the stories we have, even like the stories of the goddesses, it's always like they're always being punished. They're like always being punished. Is there one story about a goddess where they were like, "You are the best"? Here you
know, you've done so well. You're great.
Where's the story? Is there one story?
Yeah, it's true.
Can you name one? I couldn't find. I can't find them.
For me, because that was the other thing as well, exactly what you're saying. Okay, so the two stereotypes that I had in my head was, okay, whenever I hear about the women of the Bible, they're either talked about as these temptresses who bring down godly men through their sexuality. Right? So it's always, the Delilahs and, all these Jezebels, and that's, so, you've got that end of it. Or you've got the other end where, okay, fine, if she has done something good and she's very chaste and she's very pure and, she's had a baby and she serves her husband. And those were literally just the two thought processes that I had about what a Christian woman's supposed to be, and because that's what's always thrown out there. So when I did start to kind of dig and look at the stories, I found all sorts. I mean, there's, Jael, for example, who won a war for Israel. There's Joanna and Susanna who because we always hear about, you mentioned the prostitute, Mary Magdalene, for example. Yeah.
You know what? Like, what if, and I started thinking about that too. And it's one of the reasons why I started this project and why I was excited to talk to all of these different people is because I like you was always like that. Like, am I sweet or am I evil? Like, am I like the virgin or am I the whore?
Yeah.
And like, I didn't know there was anything in between.
There was anything in between. And that is it. Like Joanna and Susanna, the same sort of thing, had similar backgrounds to Mary Magdalene and that sort of thing, but actually funded Jesus' ministry. See?
I didn't know about them.
Exactly.
Where is their story?
Oh gosh, I would have to look it up for you because I have written about them, but I will just send it to you straight.
We'll find a way to like circle this back. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that continue the conversation.
Exactly.
We'll link back to that so people can read about it, because that's the kind of stuff that when you start digging, you kind of go like, oh, wait, it's just like, it's always been there. We just didn't talk about it.
We just didn't talk about it. I think the biggest one, though, for me was the Proverbs 31 woman, because, they always talk about the fact that, she, her husband and children shall rise up and call her blessed. And, she's this woman, the way that she's always presented is she looks after her family and her children, and that's all she does. And then you read the whole thing and, she sells things. She's got multiple businesses. She's got income streams. And it's like, they never talk about that side.
Oh my gosh, we need to find all of this stuff, because that was one of those things that it really, and I think that we all kind of, it depends on who you are, but we all kind of, we have these experiences in different ways. And I look at my path and I can only speak from my own experience, right? And, I had a millionaire boyfriend. I had one and he was going to take care of me and it was great. Yeah. But like, he didn't actually, it wasn't enough. And so it was like, you must be crazy. I walked away from,
I can understand why you did.
Because I knew that if I didn't, I would never live my life.
Yeah.
And so I chose me over being cared for.
Yeah.
And it really, I went into debt. I did all these things for myself to learn how to value myself. And like, here I am going, okay, you know what? Like, this is not, it's not enough.
Yes.
I mean, some people, there's nothing wrong with that line. I'm not knocking that life.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful listen.
Exactly.
Different strokes for different folks. That's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, we just need to get away. Exactly. And we need to get away from this one size fits all. And I think like you, that's what really bothered me. Like, how can you say that with all the different personalities and characteristics and all the different ways that God has made us,
right,
that we're all just supposed to present one way and only one way is right? Right. How does that make sense?
Yeah. And also you look at like I look at like the Jezebels and all of that, and I'm like so fascinated by that side of it, because you mentioned a lot of these, so many women in abusive relationships. I know what that's like. I've been in that position and not speaking up. And actually, because I was told, and this is my experience, and I don't know what yours is, but because I was told that there were two types of women. There were the sweet, virginal, pure ones, and then there were the prostitutes.
Wow.
And there was nothing in between.
Wow.
And so I kind of bought into that and was like, okay, you use what you got. What do you have? Right. You have sex, you have your attractiveness. So you might be one of those prostitutes. That's just the way it is. Therefore, when a man wants to take something from you, you give it to him. You know what I mean?
I do.
And so it kept me in positions where I would never stay now. See it. And I'm wondering, like, what did you discover? Like, what can you share around people that are going through what I went through, where I stayed, I made a lot of decisions where I didn't speak up for myself because I bought into the stories. Well, the prostitute, right? Like, I have to be one or the other.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I guess I'm a prostitute, and I guess that's the way it is. Therefore, like, I give myself away. And if someone hurts me, that's just it. That's the way the cookie crumbles, because that's the way God made you, you know? And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair.
No. Yeah, exactly. I think there's so much in what you just said. And I think there are so many different layers to that, because it's definitely what you said about, well, I stay in this situation because that's what a good woman does. That's what a pure woman kind of heart does. And if I go the other way, then I'm no longer that. And therefore I am the baddie. The worst thing about that is that I would say general society, but also very traditional Christian societies will also condone that, and they will back that up with their judgments. So that's what also can make it really hard to kind of leave. I think the other thing that I found was a lot of the theories and doctrines surrounding a woman's place. And why her place is that way. So if we go back to Eve, for example, very much what I kind of came across was this whole idea of, when God first made the woman, Adam was supposed to be the head, she was supposed to be under him. So therefore, when she gave him that apple, she was upsetting the system. So when God said, your desire shall be for your husband, that was God reinstating that headship again. And so it was keeping her in line so that she, and all women after her basically could no longer exactly tempt men and have their say.
I say boo on that.
Exactly.
I don't believe that story.
Neither do I. I don't believe that that's the essence of the story. The fact of the matter is, what constantly happens, and even what that story proves, is women, I feel, are held to much higher accountability than men are. So if a woman does things, or, these women of the Bible, for example, or even contemporary women, even the way that we're looked at, for example, if you've had multiple partners versus a man, those sort of things, it's always been like that. So it's the same with Adam, for example. Right. Well, he ate the apple too, but Eve.
I know. And it's making me think of in one story in particular, just because my mother really likes to watch like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and Bachelor.
Right.
We have this situation that just happened between these two people, right?
Yeah.
We have like the girl and the guy, and it became like this whole thing of, you kind of watched that and all of the different sides. And one thing was that he was the bad guy, and then but they wanted to paint her as a temptress, and I don't know who was right or wrong. We weren't there, but it made it so clear to see how it just kind of, the first thing the media did was paint them in a certain way.
Exactly.
And you look at that, but then beyond that, I keep going, okay, so you have the story of Adam and Eve. This is where my cuckoo mind goes.
Right.
I go, okay, so you have Adam, you have Eve. What about the snake? Like, why is anyone like, what? But the snake was involved. Like, there was a third party. There was a snake in the middle being like, psst. And what I thought, what came to my mind was, what if, I'm so excited to be able to have, because I have this conversation with myself all the time, but else, and people can listen, is, what did the snake say that got her to be like, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that? Do you think it was like, I'm going to do this evil thing and I'm going to ruin the world? Or was it like, oh, Adam would like this piece of fruit. The snake said he would enjoy it. I'm going to share it with him.
That's one of my arguments.
Innocently.
That is literally one of my whole thing is, why is it that she has been painted so evilly, where I can read the story and kind of go, especially because one of the theories, surrounding, Christian women and our purpose as well is, you're supposed to be a helper, so a wife, for example. So if she was being a helper and she's being told that actually this apple is a good thing, then in her helper role, doesn't she want to go, hey, look, I was just told her,
Yeah, and also, what did God say? He said, do not do this, right? Right. Here's my thing. Have you ever told, a child, whatever you do, I have a dog, I mentioned my dog, right? I'm on the beach once, case in point, I said, whatever you do, don't run.
Yeah.
Don't run because he'll chase you. Mm-hmm. So what does she do? She runs. And I'm like, oh, I did that thing you're not supposed to do. I said, don't do it. And she did. Because the mind doesn't process a double negative. It can't. So if God's so smart, why would God make a brain that doesn't process a double negative, but use a double negative? He has to know that he's going to do it it goes around and around and around. And
absolutely.
That it is I'm glad that I'm not the only one that's starting to go well, hey, wait a minute. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why am I the bad one?
Yes, exactly. And why, if we look at the whole story, why am I the only bad one? And why is it that because of this one story, millions of generations of women have continued to suffer after it? Because people think that that's the natural order. And hey, that's just the way that it is. I think that's what my major issue was. And that's why I very much kind of went back to the beginning, because I was like, okay, we always hear the bad stuff. Because if 9 times out of 10, if you ask women about Eve, what do you associate Eve with? Periods, birth,
the fall from grace. Right? You get out of here, you're bad.
Exactly.
Woman, you ruined life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm guilty of it too. I know before this, I did a lot of shaking my fist up at Eve, But at the very same time, if you go back and just in those small little verses about her, one of the things I discovered is, just even what it says about being made in God's image. And that's not just men, that's us too. That our spirits, we're aligned to him too. We also, have this, our own higher powers and gifts and abilities and strengths and talents as well. That we're also able to rule. We're also able to, be bosses in today's language, lead, all of those sort of things. But you have to first of all be willing to question and be willing to kind of go back for yourself with a fine-tooth comb and look at that and not be so ruled, I think, by what you've always been told.
Right.
I think, like we're saying, a lot more women are willing to do that and are questioning because, like you said, they've had bad experiences, or they have felt the pain of being judged in that way. And seriously, the amount of emails I've had from women kind of going, boy, because of the way that the church, or traditional people will say, well, that's kind of what you get as a woman. I really, and it's been sanctioned as this is what the Bible says.
It's this is legit.
Yeah, this is legit. And also, does that mean that God doesn't love me? That because I am a woman, I am less worthy, and this is just my lot, and I'm supposed to deal with that.
And it's just the way it is. Yeah, and I love having this conversation too, because we're looking at one isolated section of religion, but really you can take, again, and I've been looking at this from all angles. Take this story of Adam and Eve and you can transpose it onto many old stories. I mean, you look at the Vestal Virgins in Rome, same thing. If something was wrong, they buried them alive, and it was their wrong. You look at the goddesses and the gods. At one point, they were happy together, and then they split them up and said, "You go here and you go here." It's the same thing. So
I always felt that way about the story of Medusa, for example. That story always made me so angry. I was like, so you're telling me that she suffered at the hands of a man? I believe she was raped, wasn't she? And because of that, if I remember the story correctly.
Maybe.
And
therefore she's like tainted for life.
She's tainted for life, has become this monster. And I'm like, really?
Right. Yeah. And it's, and you look at, in, the story of, it'll come to me, Sedna is, thrown overboard, and she became the angry goddess of the sea. And, so we have these different sides, and even like, you have all the goddesses. You have like goddess Lakshmi, who's luck and beautiful. And then you have Kali, who's like angry beast. Yeah. And it seemed like this is something that's following me my whole life, because I've been like so confused about my own existence my whole life, because I've gone, I don't understand why I'm supposed to be one way, but I feel another. Like I don't feel like a bad person. I don't feel like a slut or a whore or like a piece of garbage. Like, I feel like a really good person, and yet time and time again, I'm getting slapped around like I'm some and this is an exaggeration, but not really, like some sort of piece of trash. Because of my appearance. Yes. And what goes beyond that, I'm an exaggerated version because I'm blonde and I have boobs, like larger boobs and so.
I hear that.
You would see that and think it's something. Yeah. Which made it just very, it was like the classic archetype. But beyond that, it's not just me. It's a universal thing. Yes. And you're helping illuminate the fact that it's not about it's not about the color of your skin or the size of your boobs or the color of I've tried dyeing my hair. I get treated the same way. Right. Black hair, it still happened. Yeah. So it's not about the external package. It's about the concepts, right?
It is. Because I think that's one of the other things as well, where, the whole modesty culture thing where a woman's supposed to cover up. And I told, as soon as you mentioned your boobs and stuff, I was like, yes, because I too have a larger than
I know. I'm like, we don't need to show them now.
No, we're good. Not today. We don't have to take our words for it. And it's the same sort of thing where there's this whole thing of, but you're supposed to cover up and you're supposed to do this and do that. And I'm kind of like, but God made me. Surely he knew that I would be well endowed, right? I mean, what am I really supposed to kind of do?
And am I supposed to apologize for that?
Apologize for who I am and the way I look and just the way that I was made. And once again, it's this thing of blaming. Well, yes, actually, as a woman, you are, because this is just how you're supposed to carry yourself. And this is a generalization. I don't believe this, but this whole thing of these poor men can't help themselves and you need to help them and protect them.
No. It's not a generalization. It's not a generalization. I have one story of when I was in 7th grade. I learned this stuff from somewhere, right? And like I said, it's followed me my whole life. Yeah. 7th grade, right? Everybody's wearing short shorts. Everybody, all the kids, right? Mm-hmm. I tell my teacher that my bus driver said something to me that made me uncomfortable. My bus driver was a bit of a perv. Yeah. And she said, when you wear shorts like that, what do you expect? Oh my God. And she said that, and I remember it. Yes, you can distort memories. I am aware of all that stuff so clearly. That was a snapshot in my mind. Yeah. Because I thought, it's my fault.
It's you. See, this is it.
Oh, because I wore short shorts. And I can't wear short shorts because of my body, because I'm attractive. And then that makes me bad. Yeah. Somehow it becomes, because you're beautiful, because you're attractive. Exactly. Somehow it's your fault.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
It makes no sense. And I think the other bit that doesn't make sense about that is women are almost felt sorry for or maybe scolded for not being traditionally beautiful or whatever. But then when you are, you're also punished for it.
There's a whole other
like that as well. It's just so confusing, to be honest. It is. I think as a woman, and all these kind of what we're talking about, body image, and I think you are constantly doing a dance between how you are comfortable and what is authentic for you, and knowing that actually you shouldn't have to cover up, or you shouldn't have to carry yourself a certain way, but then also knowing, but the rest of society views me like this, or will judge me for this.
Right. And also being attracted, that's something I struggled with a lot, was I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. Like, is it okay that people find me attractive, or does that make me like the temptress?
Yes,
and what
exactly. Do I do what do I do with that? What do I do about it?
Because I'm afraid. What if I go near someone and then they're attracted to me? Do I go to hell?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's like, I don't worry about heaven and hell because that's not those aren't my religious beliefs. But you know what I'm saying?
Like, no, but
it doesn't matter. The words can be hell. Is it negative karma?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you can use any word you want.
But it's the same concept.
It's the same. Does it make me bad?
Yes, exactly.
The villain.
Yeah.
So we're like, we still have some time left, but so with all that being said, because basically what you're doing is you're illuminating all of the things I've always thought, and I'm like, okay, so I'm super glad I'm not the only one, and that means you're not the only one, and I'm not the only one. There's probably bazillions of people out there that will listen and go, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. What do you have in terms of advice, or like, what can people do? Because you know, I'm in the middle of it, and I'm an expert in multiple things, spirituality and healing and all of these things. But it's a societal thing, right? It's a systemic.
I so agree. Right? I do agree with that. I think.
What can we do? Obviously we can't do one thing and make it all go away.
Exactly.
What are some little things that we can start doing?
Yeah, I think that with any kind of pioneering or change or leadership, it always starts with you. So if you are feeling or thinking that something is just not quite right, you know, then I think it's up to you to get those answers. Don't just sweep it under the carpet. Don't just say that you're crazy or, you know, whatever the case may be. Have a look, because I think for me, what I did was, once again, asking my questions when people were saying certain things to me, but why? Why not? And with some people, they were so closed-minded. It was a very much because that, you know, it just is. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, fine, I'm just going to have a look for myself. And I think sometimes you've got to be that person. Just because people try to shut you down, and just because people kind of say, well, you should stop questioning or whatever, if that feeling's still there, do your own digging, you know, start from somewhere. For me, you know, I'm very similar to you, where when I was younger, I loved like the Norse gods and the Greek gods and all of that sort of, you know, mythology. And then also, you know, for me, because for me, this was a question, it was a faith question. So that's why I turned towards the Bible. But whatever it is for you, you know, whatever I guess is going to give you the most peace or the greatest answers, go to that source.
Right.
I think the other thing would then be to walk it out. So, for example, sometimes you can know the answer to something, but you can be so afraid of standing out, or you can be so afraid of, you know, not being normal or following the crowd that you kind of bury that knowledge and do it anyway because it's easier. I mean, let's be honest, swimming against the current is not easy. Standing out and standing up against something is not easy.
Hopefully with things like this, you know, that's things that we want to change, you know, and I keep talking about this movement, like, one of the reasons why I love it so much is like, this is the best way for me to help, because it's building. This is it. It's like, okay, we're building an arc. Like, I feel like we're building a ship, and I'm like, get on the ship. We're going.
Exactly.
Come on. It's not just one fish.
Yeah. And I was just about to say that. It's like, you start. You start walking the walk for yourself. But then I was going to say, because it's not easy, try and find like-minded people. Right. I think part of the reason why I started blogging and actually having conversations on this subject is because I think I don't think I realized it then, but I can look at it now and go, I think, Nina, you were just really hungry to find other people that were thinking like you. So one of the things I started doing was holding interviews, and it was amazing how much comfort I got from those interviews. Because, it's not just me. Oh my God. So I would definitely say, don't do this alone. Like, absolutely go find a community.
Right.
You know?
Right. absolutely agree with that. And like, you know, like I said, like that's one of the reasons why I started this, because for so long I felt like it was just me. And I was like, you know, these are my beliefs and this is my teaching and this is how I can help you and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, you know what, actually what we need now, the individual healing is one thing, like what you're saying, right? Yeah. And that you can call it healing, you can call it faith, you can call it therapy, you can call it doesn't matter, whatever it is, each person's journey, the tools can be unique, right? Yes. And I think there's like, we have a massive array of tools we can use, but at the end of the day, it's getting now to where what I'm finding is there's been so much just like, it's kind of like we're all yelling at each other, but we have headphones in.
Sure.
You know, like we're like, can you? But we're not like
talking at the same time.
Yeah, we're not listening. And even with social media, I found that it started to get like I would put my opinion out there, and then what would happen is people would come back. They didn't like what I had to say.
Sure.
And they would want to pick a fight. You know what I mean? And then I'd be like, I don't like it here. I don't like fighting. And then I would just like, here, I'm here. I don't like it. You know what I mean? And so
absolutely,
that's another reason why I thought, okay, you know what?
We need a safe space.
And all of that stuff is great. But what we really need is a structure.
Yeah.
We need something that exists where we can actually do this kind of dialogue where it's structured and it's safe.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that was why, one of the reasons why I started this was I thought, okay, you know what? What's really great is if I build it in a way where we can have these conversations and we invite people to continue the conversations. Yeah. I've got your story and your experiences and your tools. I've got mine. I've got all these tools in one place.
Yes.
It's like a huge collective ship to come to where you can talk about stuff and so not be crucified.
Yes. Yes. I think that exactly what you just said. I think that's part of what I was talking about with the hardship of it, because you can begin to put your foot down and say, I'm no longer accepting these as truth. You know, I'm no longer going to live by these. But if you don't have the safe space or people who respect your opinion enough to allow you then to walk in your own path and authenticity and what you believe to be right, then
yeah, it can be challenging. And I've done a lot of, like you, studying a lot of this stuff, because a lot of it I'm like, well, where is this coming from? Why do we feel this way? Why does it feel so terrifying? Why, like what is happening? And I found that a lot of it is so old and so ancient, and we know things like epigenetics, like all of these things are real. We do remember, it stays in our brainstem, it stays in our system. Yes. And so we're dealing with things that have been around for multitudes of lifetimes. Yeah. We're not just talking like the last century, you know, it goes way, way, way back. And I think in some way, shape, or form, like I personally feel like, I'm glad you're writing about Eve, and I thank you for that, because
thank you.
Because it's like, it's a kind of thing that like we all have that. And it's one of those things where it's not about the color of your skin. It's not about how you grew up or what, like Nigeria, United States, England, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah. We all have a right to identify with that sense of, I'm a woman and I did something wrong. Yeah. And it's real.
True. And it's universal.
Oh my God, it's so universal. It's like, it is, I think it's just, I keep saying it's systemic because it's like, it's so old and it's so ingrained that, it's hard for us to even begin, like, to say where it started. Like, who cares? You know what I mean?
The fact is that it is, and people are suffering because of it. Right. And so I think what really needs to happen then is once we've kind of created these safe places and we're having these conversations, it's almost like what I say about church. You can't, there's no point, going, into the four walls and keeping it there. You kind of got to, you live that life of love and faith and everything outside as well. Right. You've got to demonstrate that. And I think it's the same here. If it's systemic, if it's a societal thing, then we then need to get into our various societies and communities, and be willing to speak up and be willing, then that's the next step to make that change. So it's better.
Right. And have the courage to actually, because I went through, even recently, even over the last few weeks before I started doing this, before I was saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to hang this shingle up, right? I'm the Mythbuster, man. Yeah. We're going back. I'm blowing up the Bible, you know? I love the Bible, but I'm telling the stories that aren't helping. Yeah. Terror. Sheer and utter terror of like, I'm so scared. Like, what are they going to come and like nail me to a cross again? Like, and not just me, like collectively speaking, like what are they going to do to the people that want to bring the truth to light? Like, what are they going to do? And why are we so scared? And what are we going to do? But the more I do this and being able to speak with you, I'm like, I don't have to be scared.
No. It's true. And once again, totally identify with that, because I remember before, I think I've gone through this in lots of different stages. So there was a terror because I felt different to other people and no one else seemed to have a problem with it. And then there was a terror because I was finally putting my foot down and started beginning to say to people, actually, this is how I'm feeling. And then there was a terror because I was opening up the conversation and starting to blog and talk about it. And then there's a terror because, okay, it's not just my own space. I'm now speaking to you and going to other place. So I think as you grow in the journey, you know, it will always kind of be scary because you are going against the status quo. So even if that, for example, the manifestation is not getting married or not having children, I think that's why we question and why we kind of go, oh, but am I doing the right thing? Because you look around and no one else seems to be doing the same thing that you are. But it's not until you kind of have these conversations that you realize, okay, like you said, I'm not alone. This is okay. And it's necessary. It is absolutely necessary, because people, like you said, to use your word, healing, people do get such healing just from hearing another person say, me too. You know, I have gone through that. I've been through that. This is how I'm feeling. There is great healing just in hearing that another person understands, you know? So, yeah, this space is so, so necessary.
Right. Well, and I imagine we have to wrap up in a second, but I imagine there's going to be lots of people that listen to this and say, oh my gosh, I felt like that my whole life. I felt like I was being blamed, or I was taking the blame on, and I didn't understand why, or so many people out there that subscribe to the belief that, you know, that's just the way it is. And if you're born to be the prostitute, you're born to be the prostitute. And that's, you know, and that's all you get.
Absolutely.
And that in itself is massively healing and freeing, because I know that if I felt that way and you felt that way, that there are so many others around who feel like that feel like, well, that's just the way it is, because that's the way the story was written.
Absolutely.
And I find great healing and comfort in saying, you know what, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
what
too.
if we got it wrong? You know, like there is another way. So with that being said, before we go, will you just share where people can find you and find all of these amazing things about Eve and all the great things you're working on? Just say it here, and then we'll also link it back.
Okay, perfect. So my main website is thefaroboverubiescollection.com. So a lot of the women of the Bible and the interviews and all that sort of stuff that I mentioned earlier, that's where all of that is housed. I think the first thing about Eve would be, I have a free email course that people can go through. And the short link is bit.ly, and I think it's /understand God's purpose. And it literally just goes through all the myths and stuff that we were actually talking about. So if they want to take a closer look at that, they can. Yeah,
awesome. We'll link all of that back. And for everyone listening, you'll be able to find more about Nina there and Eve and all my buddy Eve, right? I feel like I'm like, I'm suddenly craving an apple. And then come over to the website, come to womenarising.org to continue this conversation. This is like a really important one, and one of the ones that's like near and dear to my heart, because I've been like, we're going to vindicate Eve for
you know,
absolutely. Like really, like that poor woman's been on trial.
I felt that
story. And so, you know, people that listen, everyone that's listening, come over there, share what this is illuminated with you, or you know what this means.
would love to
and
see
what you're liberated from, and continue the conversation with us there at womenarising.org. And thank you for listening, and thank you for being with us today. This is
thank you. I had such a great time. Thank you so much.
So grateful. And as I always say before we go, remember, let love be your sword and truth your mission. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening and joining us for Women Are Rising with Katie Kozlowski. If you love the conversation and you want to join us for more, come check us out at womenarising.org and jump on our mailing list, grab yourself a free meditation, and join the Women Are Rising family. We can't wait to hear your war story at womenarising.org.